Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion fic by Aeolian Sands called The Rescue Party from Archive of Our Own. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Rescue Party by Aeolian Sands. Chapter 29. The War Room. Enwe was running down the halls. Every second screamed at him to move. If this plan was going to work, then he had quite a few things to do, quite quickly. The few elven fea that wandered this part of Mondos turned to look at him in surprise. The Maiar of Mondos did not run, in fact they barely walked, preferring to glide as leisurely as possible. After a few moments of dodging the slowest beings to ever live, the Herald of Manwë had had enough. He unfurled his white wings and began flying at a reckless pace. That was when he ran into Vaire, hanging a tapestry of himself fighting Sauron over Gondolin. The weaver turned, not expecting to see Enwe in the flesh barreling towards her. "Ah!" she exclaimed. And Enwe banged hard, hit the ceiling like a confused pigeon, and tumbled to the ground in a heap. "Enwe?" Vaire asked, staring at him in an expression of complete disbelief. "My lady Vaire," Enwe answered, picking himself off the floor and bowing. "Begging your pardon, my lady, but something is amiss. One of my birds told me that they found Lomion, son of Irise, in the fields just east of here." "And that explains you flying down the halls because?" "Because Sauron has also escaped. He knows of Gondolin, and the Noldor and Sindar who dwell there are in grave danger." Vaire did not look alarmed or amused. "And that explains your involvement how?" "I'm an herald. Should I not be the one who warns the Gondolindrim?" "Enwe," Vaire sighed, and placed a delicate hand on Enwe's shoulders, the sheer purple fabric that looped around her arms trailing the motion. "Look at this tapestry. Don't you look heroic?" Enwe reluctantly glanced at it and saw an image of himself with his great sword drawn, standing over a kneeling Sauron. The dusty air was embroidered around them in sparkling threads that caught the sun's rays. "It is a fine tapestry, my lady." "You defeated Sauron quite thoroughly, as I recall him. Bound him to one form? No wonder Manwë praises you so much. You may be the most powerful of the Maiar." Enwe didn't like where this was going. "Well, my lady, Osse is not to be overlooked." "Yes, Osse, the hurricane with the body. But that scaled wonder aside, don't you find it odd that Sauron, being so completely defeated, managed to escape? It's not like my husband is here to continue his current stupidity streak and release an Umayya with the horde of kinslayers." "Oh no." "Then you show up, flying in the opposite direction of his cell?" "My lady, I can't let Sauron know that I am after him." "That is a half-baked truth, if I ever heard one." Enwe realized he was trapped. "But it's still the truth," he mumbled. Then he looked up. "All right, let's go somewhere private and quickly. There is truly little time." Maiklin realized that he had dreamt a rather strange dream. First, he was helping Feanor create ice picks. He remembered that he and the dead Kinslayer had even named them. Ice teeth are something equally stupid. "Oh, Aule, I wonder if this is a bad omen. I should ask Ben-Galad what it means to be collaborating with Kinslayers in your dreams." And then it got worse. He had fought Ecthelion. Not that he hadn't always wanted to deliver a well-deserved jab at the annoying flutist, but still. He was outside the gates! Outside the gates with Feanor! Then a bat creature grabbed him out of the sky. Maiklin resolved that he would find whatever drug Glorfindel had put in his wine last night to make him dream of such nonsense. Then he would cut off half of his precious hair and make him swallow double the dose. This really was not that funny. Then Michael opened his eyes and immediately realized that he was not in his bed. What? He was laying on a grass field, but it did not itch. Ariane was high above, but her rays did not scorch, nor did they fail to warm. And the colors! All around him were colors so vivid they made the rest of the world seem dull. The grass blades were green, olivine, while the mountains in the distance shone with forests of emerald and snow-capped peaks of the purest white. And the sky! Even in the light of day he could make out a twinkling of stars. It was as if the world had wrapped itself in a canopy of woven jewels. One thing was for sure. This was not Gondolin, and most definitely not Nam Elmoth. In fact, there was no way this was Beleriand. He must still be dreaming. Yet the breeze that played with his hair was so gentle, and the air tasted sweet as honey. I can't dream this, he thought. No one can dream of such perfect world. And something settled in his fare. Something calm and heavy, like a blanket in a winter, that told him one word. Home. This is Valinor, he whispered out loud. The Bat Lady took me to Valinor. He needed a moment, because if Valinor around him was real, and it surely was, then the dream had not been a dream at all, and undead Feanor and Bat Lady were both very real. Michael sat on the grass and decided he ought to close his eyes for a few seconds. I ran into Thuringwethil with Lomion, Enwa told Vaire matter-of-factly once they were seated in her gardens, and I saw an opportunity. Thuri, she has fallen far and has been consumed with darkness. What did you do to her? I made her swear not to tell anyone of Ondalinde and to release Lomion, who she had captured. Vaire nodded. But doesn't Sauron know of Ondalinde? He does, Enwa said, reaching to grab a rose stem from the vase in the middle of the table. He fiddled with it for a moment. Thuri believes one of two things. Either that I forgot this little fact, or, more likely, that I am betting on her being successful in running away with Sauron to the far south or east. You see, my sister has become disenchanted with Morgoth, although her heart remains black. She wishes to be her own master, and to let only her own lusts and selfish nature rule her. And you do not hope for her to take Sauron away? I do not. In fact, it is my very wish that they run straight to Morgoth and tell their tales. Maidan will get the just punishment he deserves, and Morgoth will have an irresistible temptation before him. Let the fell spirits of Morgoth laugh at how they have deceived me, at how I remembered to muzzle one but not both of my former companions. Let them laugh all the way to Ondalinde, where they will find the city empty and an army waiting in ambush. You are using Ondalinde as bait, the Vala realized with wonder. Enwa's smile was sly. He set the red flower down on the glass table. Yes, but even if this plan fails, and Thuri drags Mairon to the south, Melkor losing his two favorite servants is no small consolation prize. Plus, no matter which way fate unfolds, Lomion will be safe. Vaire looked at him and shook her head. Eonwe, Herald of Manwe, you have a devious streak in you. I prefer the simple sword to strategy. Yet one does not spend centuries with Maidan as a friend and be lacking in guile. I would never have lived to see the trees in that case. And what will Manwe say to this? Oh, he will probably clip my wings when he finds out. I ought to wait for his permission to intervene, but things have been set in motion that cannot be undone. Long have I known my fate to lead the final battles in Beleriand. The time has come, and I shall not run from it. Well, in that case, you're lucky that you just missed Varda. My handmaiden says that she came calling this morning while I was out finding new dyes. She was looking for my husband. Of course, he has fled west. And we winked. Your husband, my lord Namo, will prove to be the most useful distraction. Let the eyes of Taniquetil fall on him first. The herald stood. I will send an eagle to return Maiglin here. Let him return with the rest of his house. We will need all the strength we can get in the coming battle. Where are you going? My lady, I've got an evacuation to complete. Osse was laying on his back, floating in the middle of the seas, eyes half-lidded. He soaked in audience rays. He was just about to doze into an afternoon sleep when he heard shouting from on high. We are going back to Angband! It was not a suggestion, Thuri! Zahn was practically screaming in Valarin. For once, his own tongue felt foul. A loud hiss, and Osse opened his eyes to see a massive bat holding on to a golden-haired creature in its talons. Was that Myron and Thuringwithil? No! The bat screeched. Milkor will kill you for your failures, and force me to watch. Haven't you had enough of serving Manwe's brother? All Valar are the same. Let me go! Myron demanded as he dangled like an ornament. Unless you plan to keep me in chains till this body fails me, then you have no hope of defying my will. I shall return to Melkor and tell him of the secret of Ondalinde. Then he will whip you to death. I will take my chances. He's the only one able to reverse what Eonwë did. You certainly cannot. Now take me to him or release me. Into the sea? Thuringwethil screeched. Do you have a death wish? Osse decided that this conversation sounded entertaining. He quickly gave himself dark wings to match his hair, he hated flying, and shot up behind the struggling Umayyar. Will it be a public whipping? He asked as he approached them from behind. Also, do all servants of the dark fly with their masters in their talons as if they were fish caught for dinner? Thuringwethil whirled to face him. Osse, brave of you to take to the sky. Braver still of you to cross the ocean. But you haven't answered my question. If you must know, I had him on back until he tried to jump. Osse stared at Myron, whose arms were held firmly in Thuringwethil's claws. He looked more than miserable. The lieutenant of Morgoth is suicidal? I wouldn't have guessed. Mind your own business! Myron spat. Osse's blue eyes sparkled. You don't want me to free you from this tyrant? She will do as I say, or she will be my servant no longer, Myron said through gritted teeth. And you will return to the waters where you belong, for your own safety. Osse wasn't about to obey an Umayya, but something appeared to be brewing. He felt it in the song around him, and he had no doubt that it had to do with the Finwëns who he had helped cross the sea. So he smirked instead. Not because of your word, but because it appears as if you have already found yourself in boiling water without my assistance. Carry on, then. And Osse dove back into the waters, watching warily from beneath the waves as Thuringwethil allowed Myron to climb on her back. Saving face, no doubt. Then he watched the two of them continue in a northerly direction. Apparently, Sauron still had some control over his servants. Once they were out of sight, he turned and raced towards the harbours of Egalrest where he knew Ulmo to be. Ulmo and Namo sat on the dock, swinging their legs over the water. I didn't realize your time in Endor was so relaxing, Namo said. You just get the mortals to do your errands and all is well. Ulmo threw him a dark look. You just happened to appear when my errand was near complete. My time here is anything but relaxing. I haven't had this much peace in ages, Namo declared as they watched the gulls flying over the waves. Imagine having to open your home to every elf who thinks himself able to best death. It's like parenting 1,000 toddlers. Something tells me you're not doing much parenting, Namo. Not to mention, my work here is not done. The Finwans pray that I guide them to Ondalinde. They want to be reunited with their family. Are you seriously considering listening to them? We need the Eldar to fight Moringotto, not each other. It sounded like they truly missed one another. Fiery stars, Ulmo, your head is waterlogged. The elves only think that they miss each other. In reality, they will be at each other's throats in 5 seconds. I've seen it time and time again. Whenever a new Fea meets a long-lost brother or sister or cousin, first there are hugs and tears. This is immediately followed by a brawl on the floor. It's called brotherly love. You should know. It was a walking cloud of fog. There's nothing in that head of his. You prove my point. Do not. You cannot wrestle a fog cloud. But the bite had gone out of Namo's tone. Just then the water parted and 2 tanned arms emerged from the water to land on the deck. The Lord of the Dead is going to wrestle a cloud? Osse asked as he supported himself with his elbows resting the dock. No, I'm going to sit here on the dock and enjoy my peace. Ulmo rolled his eyes. What is it, Osse? You usually don't seek me out unless the waves are on fire. Osse winced, remembering that particular episode. Nay, no fires, my lord, but I saw the one whom the elves call Sauron with Thuringwethil flying east. Sauron appeared weak and unable to change forms. In fact, he was dangling like a fish on a spear from Thuringwethil's talons. He said something about going to Angamando and telling the location of Ondalinde to his foul master. Ulmo turned to stare at Namo, whose face was drained of color. Namo, the Lord of Waters began slowly. Would you like to explain why exactly Moringotto's second-in-command is free? It shouldn't be possible. Eonwe bound him in a single fauna and stripped his powers. Yet it is so, Ulmo pointed out. Someone could have let him out, Osse said. 2 pairs of eyes stared with relentless intensity into his soul. The Maya backed off the dock and tread water, holding his hands up. Not me! Unlikely to be Thuri either. She is not strong or clever enough for such a task, but... He looked at the sky. High above them, a lone figure with barely discernible white wings was streaking through the upper atmosphere. Ulmo groaned and rested his head in his hands. Is that Eonwe? Namo asked in surprise. None other, answered Ulmo, head still buried in his hands. Wherever he's going quite quickly, and I doubt Manwe is any wiser. I'm not chasing him, Osse said after a moment of silence. As fun as it sounds, I have no interest in flying after Manwe's herald. I will stay in the water, thank you. No, but now that you're here... Ulmo lifted his head, and his expression was dangerous on his grizzled face. Osse swam further out. Nope. The elves of Nargothrond prayed for guidance to Ondalinde. They wished to reunite with their kin. Last time I was involved with an Noldor family reunion, I ended up wrapped in vines in the bottom of the sea. So would you prefer if I sent Namo? Since when you are one to shrink from an adventure? Adventure is one word for it, Osse huffed, spitting water lazily in the direction of the 2 Valar. I will give Uinen a new hairpiece and say it was from you, Ulmo declared. The Maya sunk deeper in the water so only his eyes stayed above the waves. He glared at his lords for several seconds before swimming to the dock and hoisting himself out. 2 headpieces, he said, wringing his hair out. 2. Osse huffed and went on his way. Finrod was sitting in his office behind his large oak desk. His father was sitting on one of the chairs near the bookshelf. They were the only occupants in the room. Finrod sighed and leaned back in his chair, dropping down a handful of papers. Only 3 chickens are missing from the kitchen this morning. Well, that's a miracle, his father replied, not looking up from the maps he was studying. Do you think Duako eats them all himself? Or does he share with that wolfhound and the wolf pup? He might give them a wing, maybe half a leg. Finrod stood and stretched out his back. At least Duako brings in more meat than he consumes. Jonathan has disappeared into the file room. Legend has it he is still there. Doing what? Finarfin asked. Probably mentally ripping me to shreds for my ill-thought tariff policy. He says that I should be taxing the dwarfs more, the men less, and Thingol to the moon. But at least the economics of Nargothrond seem to be keeping him occupied. Agnar and Angrod have been sparring every day. Gorofin is being Gorofin, and Mom is being Mom. Oh yes. Finarfin nodded because he knew that the ladies had taken upon themselves to launch into a massive interior redecorating campaign while they waited for a word from Ulmo. Already Anare had insisted on adding more greenery to the underground city, but Nerdanel had contested that she was covering up too many stone carvings. Eroin had gotten distracted by the dogs. Do you think Ulmo heard us? Finrod asked. Certainly he heard us. The question is if he will lend any aid. But we need to wait for... What do your cousins call themselves now? Madras and Maglar? Yay, don't use any other name for Nelia. Especially Maidma. They did something to him in Angamanda. Finrod shuddered. You're lucky you were not there when they returned him. His skin was a ghastly broken parchment stretched over 2 sharp bones, a sickly grey color like something already dead. I thought there was no way any fair would continue living in that, but Madros is far too stubborn to die. As for Gano, Finrod sighed. He has never been quite the same either. The guilt from his decision not to go after his elder brother weighs heavily on him. Though an interesting note about Gano Finwë. And what is that? Finarfin asked when his son decided to implement a dramatic pause in his narrative. Still, he didn't bother looking up from his map. Maglar is one of the greatest fighters that Noldor have in Beleriand. You wouldn't expect it from him. Surely Kelekorm and Uncle Nolo would have blades to contend with, but I have seen Makalare on the battlefield. He fights without expression, his blades cold like ice. I do believe, Finrod continued, looking contemplative, that if we all shall perish here, Maedhros and Maglar would be the very last. And Feanora would be the first. Again. Finarfin finally set down his parchments. There is little use wasting our time while we wait. Do you want to get involved with the interior decorating campaign? No. I think we should begin strategizing. Let us at least have a few ideas before the flood comes and sweeps us away into the chaos of action. Finrod smiled. I have just the thing, he declared, rushing out the door. He disappeared for several minutes and then came back with a small jewelry box. Taking the chair in hand, he situated himself to sit across from his father. All right, let me see this map, he said, taking the large parchment drawing of Beleriand and smoothing it out on the table before them. He opened the jewelry box and removed a glittering emerald. This is you, he said, placing it down on Nargothrond's location. And I'll be a slightly smaller emerald, he continued, setting another stone down. Angrado deserves to be an iron ingot, but to keep with the theme we will have the rest of our house as emeralds as well. Emme, Aganaro, Angrado, Artaresto, and Finduelas. Finrod counted off until there were 7 emeralds over Nargothrond. And here we also host Nolofinwë and Anaire, Finrod said, sitting down 2 sapphires next to the 7 emeralds. And we have aunts Nernael, Tuakorma, Kurofinwë, Telperinquar, and Karnistir. And continued as he dropped 5 rupees onto the map. We're almost outnumbered, Finarfin noted. I was outnumbered, holding down the fort out here alone until you apparently opened the floodgates of Mundos. He winked at his father. One day I ought to ask how you did that. I was swept up by the flood. I certainly wasn't insane enough to release it. Finrod narrowed his eyes and stared at his father in silent judgment. I am not convinced, but in any case, This is all we know for certain. From this point on, all placements may be based on outdated information. So, he continued, we have Artanis in Doriath. He placed another emerald in Thingol's realm. Vindicano at Eret Vethrin and Telvo at Amon Ereb. I have a feeling that's not quite right, my lords, a new voice said, and Finrod looked up to see Tinwe standing in the doorframe. He held a letter in his hand. Finrod breathed a sigh of relief that there was only one. News from Hithlum, Tinwe announced, striding over and handing the envelope to his king. Finrod hastily opened it. To King Findarato of Nargothrond, from High King Vindicana of the Noldor in Beleriand. Cousin, I write in haste, so you must forgive my penmanship. Irise has returned from the halls. Yet on her journey here she has encountered the horse of Maedhros, riderless. I fear ill has befallen our elder Feanorian cousins. I write now to search for them, then we will continue on to the hidden realm of Ondalinde. Iris is yet mum on the location, although I am certain I will learn it soon. I fully intend to drag my brother out of his comfortable castle if I have to drag him by the hair. If the dead are returning, now is not the time to hide. I will write you anew once I reach that secret city. Yours truly, Vindicana Nolofinuan. Finrod looked down at the sapphires in his hand and sighed once more. All right, we have 2 missing Nolofinuans somewhere north of here, he said, placing the gems down near the Teaklin. 3, his father corrected. True, but Turu is separate. We'll just put him in the mountains here. And Finrod placed a 3rd sapphire remarkably close to the true location of Gondolin, if a little north. What do we have here? Tinwe asked, leaning over the desk. Are we mapping the princess of Noldor with gemstones? We are, Finrod proclaimed. He put 2 rubies from Maedhros and Maglor somewhere close to the 2 sapphires for Vindicana and Iris. I guess the main person missing is Feanra himself. He told Nerdanel he was escaping, so we will put him here in Angamando. Finrod finished. He looked down at his jewelry box to see he was out of rubies. One moment. The king stood and went to his fireplace, taking a lump of charcoal. He then set it down near Angband. Has he burned already? Tinwe asked, eyeing the charcoal piece used to represent the former High King. Probably, answered Finarfin. So essentially what I'm seeing here is that we have several missing individuals, a large amount of us here in Nargothrond and 1 rogue idiot. As expected, Finrod agreed. Let's quickly put the armies on the map. He withdrew some large diamonds and placed a few in Nargothrond, 2 in Hithlum, 2 at Himring, 1 at Amon Ereb, and 1 near Turgon's sapphire. Why are there 2 in Hithlum? Isn't it only Vindicana's host there? Finarfin asked. No, the men of Dor Lomin can be counted on to lend their arms, his son explained. Then he paused. Wait, father! You have not yet met the second-born? Guess not, Finarfin answered. They are wonderful! Beor dwelt here for a time and was loved by all. Although their musical abilities leave much to be desired, they are strong in war. Well, I look forward to meeting them, Finarfin said as he studied the map. He frowned severely at the hunk of charcoal in the north. Feanor is going to get himself killed. He is, but in his rashness, he might be onto something. Being burned alive? Annoying Mundus? Finarfin questioned. All of the above, but also for all our gathered armies. He motioned to the map. Perhaps the most successful attack against Moringoth was Fingolfin's solo ride to the gates. A small strike force? Tinwe questioned. You are saying that a small group has a greater chance of success than united attack of the Noldor. Angamando revolves around Moringoth. If we were to kill him, the rest of his fellow forces will fall apart. We only have 1 target. Could the army serve as a distraction then? Tinwe asked. If we draw Morgoth's eye to our forces, he will not see Feanor coming for him. Finarfin stared at the advisor as if he had grown a second head. I am sorry, but it sounds like you are expecting my brother to be clandestine. Tinwe swallowed. You are right, Aranya. That was a slight miscalculation on my part. Moringoth is going to know my brother is there because he will announce his arrival by lighting himself on fire as he loudly charges the throne room, Finarfin said dryly, leaning back in his chair as he pondered the predicament. Can we do the reverse? Finrod asked after a moment. Use Fëanor as a distraction for the armies? Moringotta is in part so successful against us because his leadership is Umayyad and dragons. If the eyes of these beings are on Fëanor, we might be able to crush the orcs, Finrod reasoned. Finarfin twitched. I am not sure I like simply sacrificing my brother like that. He's a moron and has done evil, but he's still my brother. You lot are severely overestimating Fëanor's ability to stay out of trouble on the way, a strong voice declared. They all looked up to see Eanova himself standing in the doorframe. He was breathing remarkably hard for a Maya, and the sweat was glistening on his brow. At once everyone stood. My lord Eanova, Finarfin began, but the herald held up a hand and strode to the map, leaning over it. He moved the charcoal piece back to be closer to Durgon's sapphire. Trust me, he hasn't made it that far north, the herald began. He paused and looked at the map for a second before continuing. Fëanor will indeed serve as a useful distraction, but there will be one before that. He moved Turgon's sapphire and the diamond that represented his army towards Dorthonion. We will keep them Ondolinde, he proclaimed. Everyone else fell silent. Eanova reached into the box of gemstones and grabbed a red jasper. The armies of Moringotta will march to claim their prize, he said, moving the jasper from Angband towards the Ered Gorgoroth. But the city will have been evacuated. The forces of Nargothrond will strike their flank from the south and west, while the warriors of Ondolinde will circle back from the north and east, striking from Dorthonion. That's difficult, mountainous terrain, Finarfin observed. It is, Eanova agreed. Army-on-army conflict will be difficult if not impossible. Yet I believe the Eldar will have the advantage. The Valaraukar and dragons cannot easily hide in the forest and crags. They will be exposed to your arrows and spears. Hithlum could seal off hope of a retreat, Finrod said. It is possible, Finarfin acknowledged, staring at the map in thought. But what are we to do about this one? He pointed at the lone charcoal piece. Ah, that's where you come in, Eanova said. Oh no, Finarfin muttered. While Morgoth's armies are busy contending with those of your sons, you and Nolofinwe will have the opportunity to follow your brother and ensure he escapes. Following him to hell, Finarfin replied. Eanova's expression softened. At least you still have an opportunity to help your sibling. Fëanor has not fallen to the dark. Not yet. When do we act? Finrod asked. My lords, I have a message for you all. Yet another new voice proclaimed. Finrod swore under his breath. Was this not his private office? Looking up, he saw none other than Ossa himself striding up to the desk. What in the name of all that was holy? Anyway, you're looking windswept, Ossa proclaimed. Anyhow, I am here to answer your prayer to Ulmo. Ondolinde is located here. He withdrew a silver knife and stabbed the map exactly where the secret city was located, causing everyone to jump. You can go there and have your little family reunion. Farewell. I am much too far from the sea. He then turned, but Eanova grabbed him by the collar. They aren't going to Ondolinde. I am evacuating Ondolinde. Ossa held up his hands in surrender. I was just delivering a message. I am not a herald like you to do it with style. A message that is no longer useful. Tell you what, Ossa, for your nonchalance, you can help me get the elves out of Ondolinde. When Egalmoth took Ecthelion's duties as a warden of the gates, he thought he was prepared for anything up to and including spontaneous combustion. Yet when a flustered Eckamil came riding up to the gates of steel with none other than Findegano, High King of all the Noldor, at his side, well, Egalmoth decided that it was time to embrace the mannish tradition of retirement. Perhaps he could become a gardener or a jeweler. Lord Egalmoth! Fingon shouted from his saddle, the silver crown on his brow blazing in the setting sun. Long time no see! I have come to have word with my brother. Eckamil was so kind to let me through the first 6 gates. Now, I hope you will not deny me the last? Well, he certainly wouldn't turn the king away. Turgon could decide how he wanted to deal with the sudden arrival of his older brother. Egalmoth just prayed that he would be wise. Never, my king, he called from the ramparts, and with a hand signal he ordered the gate to be opened. Fingon all but galloped through, and Ekamoth decided that he was quite content to stay at the gate all night. Apparently Ekamil thought the same as he turned his horse around and made for his post at the gate of wood. Fingon felt rare anger simmering in his veins as he spied his brother's beautiful white city from across the plain of Tumladen as he galloped towards it. How dare he surround himself with comfort and luxury while their people died, drowning in black blood? How could he sleep in silks while the rest of them slept in chainmail on nights when the sky was dark and the air foul? Reaching the cobblestone streets, he ignored the gasps of onlookers, thrust away the memories of Tirion, and made straight for the tallest structure. Leaping off his horse, he strode through the gates and down the hallways till he heard the echo of conversation and clinking of glasses. Without hesitation, Fingon slammed open the oaken doors to the great hall. And once, all the gathered lords and Turgon himself turned to look at him. Fingon knew he looked out of place, his travel clothes worn and hair filthy from the road, but he did not care. "Brother!" he called. "Where were you? Where were you when our father died? Were you here, eating and drinking in comfort when Aikanaro and Angarata breathed their last? Were you the one that pulled Findarata from the mud just before the dark creatures dragged him to Angamando? Were you there with Makalaure as he fought the dragon?" Silence reigned. Turgon stood. "Brother, I am shocked to see you. You have the right to be angry. Yet Ulmo instructed me to build this city as a last hope and final retreat." His words were eloquent and sounded nearly rehearsed. Ever the diplomat, Turu. "A last hope? Does that mean the rest of your family is chopped liver? Your brother and sister already perished, so now you wait for me to fall? I tell you, Turu, I would have wrestled Gothmog for you. It wounds me greatly to find that you would not take a single orc from me. And now what? Now that I have found your secret city and know its location, will you chain me in your cellars and pray that I fade? I have the highest bounty in Arda on my head. You know how greatly the orcs seek to capture me." The lords around the table remained shocked in their silence. At last Turgon rose and made for his brother. Fingon stepped back defensively, but Turgon reached out and crushed him in a hug with strong arms. Findekana wanted to shrug him off, but it had been so long since he had last felt his brother's embrace. Finally the High King stepped back and exhaustion was on his face. "I said my piece. I leave now for the perils of the north. Stop me now if you must, but know that I will fight you. I have a people to defend. I did not take this crown lightly." Turgon smiled sadly. "I would not stop my king, though his speech worries me greatly. Stay, brother. Even if only for the night. Stay and recover from your travels. I can have a hot bath drawn for you and room prepared. We can talk more in the morning. I see that there is much that troubles you, yet you are in need of rest first." Fingon looked into his brother's eyes. It was true that he had much still to say, including the news of Aradhel and Maeklin. "All right," he acquiesced. I shall stay this night." "Do you wish to join us for dinner?" "Nah, I'm impartial to the bath you mentioned, as my muscles ache from the long hours in the saddle." Turgon nodded and called for a servant to guide him to his rooms. Fingon followed the Eleth, and once she had left him, he sat heavily on the bed, on which lay a quilt with gold embroidery. The bedposts were carved with scenes from a hunt, and the rug on the floor was soft as cotton. Fingon sighed and took off the crown, setting it on the bed. Making his way to the already drawn bath, he slipped out of his travelling clothes and sunk into the steaming hot water. At last he breathed a deep sigh. He had gotten his point across tonight. Tomorrow he would convince his brother to go to war with him one final time. Findekana closed his eyes and gave a quick prayer to Manwe that Turgon would be easy to convince, and not so entrenched in love with his city that he valued it above his kin. Little did he know that divine help was already on its way in the form of 2 squabbling Maiar. End of chapter 29. Stay tuned.